Once the chair is elected, I will vacate the seat and the chair will assume the chair role and seek nominations for the vice chair. So get right into it. So I would like to call for nominations of the board chairperson for the coming year. Are there any nominations for the board chairperson? Trustee Franklin.
I nominate John Kerr.
John Kerr, Trustee Kerr. Trustee Kerr, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the position of board chairperson? Okay, so Trustee Kerr has been nominated for the board chairperson. I want to call 2 more times. So next time, are there any other nominations for the board chairperson? And for a final time, I will ask if there are any other nominations for the board chairperson. We're hearing no further nominations. Nominations are now closed. And I would like to declare that Trustee John Kerr has been elected by acclamation to the position of board chairperson for that coming year. Congratulations. And,
Up now. With the board's indulgence, I would like to postpone my comments until after the election of the vice chair. So we will then move into item 2, which is the election of the vice chairperson for the board for the upcoming year. So for the first, yes, Trustee Franklin. Oh, I'm sorry. So I will call for nominations for the position of vice chair. Okay. Trustee McMahon.
Yes, I would like to nominate Kat Eddy for a second term, for another term as vice chair of the board, please.
Trustee Eddy, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Okay, so are there further nominations for the position of vice chair for the upcoming year? Okay, for the second time, are there further nominations for the position of vice chair for the upcoming year? Hearing none. For the third and final time, are there any nominations for the position of vice chair for the board for the upcoming year? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations closed, and congratulations, Trustee Eddy. You have been appointed board vice chair for the 2021-2022 school year. Or not school year, but do you have any remarks?
Just briefly, I want to thank the team that sits around this table, our senior leadership team, our senior management team, our PP and district teachers for supporting me in my personal learning on the journey of becoming a good governor for the children of our school district. It's a very positive and supportive environment in which to learn, and I hope that that translates to the education of our children from K to 12. Thank you.
Okay, then I will move to my remarks, and first off, I'd like to thank you for your faith in me to carry on in this position for another year. It's certainly been a learning experience over the last year, but I think that this board has been an absolutely terrific board that in pretty well every case, this board moves in the same direction, and the core purpose of this board, and it's been emphasized so many times, is the well-being, the health and well-being and learning of our students. This board has done everything that it possibly can to support our staff, to support our students, and I would like to see that continue for the upcoming year. I have no doubt that it will. Okay. So, good evening. I acknowledge on behalf of the Board of Trustees that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Liquidol people. I'm John Kerr. new chairperson of the School District 72 Board of Education. In attendance virtually this evening, in attendance this evening is Vice Chair Kat Eddy and Trustees Joyce McMahon, Richard Franklin, Susan Wilson, Daryl Hagan, and attending virtually this evening will be Trustee Shannon Briggs. Also in attendance are Superintendent Jeremy Morrow, Associate Superintendents Morgan Kyle and Phil Sisnick, as well as Secretary Treasurer Kevin Patrick. Present also are Lynn Logan, Assistant to the Superintendent, Jennifer Patrick, Manager of Communications, and providing technical support is Jonathan Carrier, IT Technician. The board began this year in meeting in person using appropriate COVID-19 protocols under advice from the District Health Officer's Office. However, in-person attendance for the public is not possible at this time except for previously scheduled presentations. So this and future meetings will be available to the public online unless and until the District Health Officer directs the board otherwise. To that end, I will also point out that to the best of my knowledge, I will also point out that we follow all safety protocols as directed by the Public Health Officer. Please note there's a 20-second production delay between the live event that you are viewing and the meeting participant. The question and answer function is open for questions on the agenda items for this meeting. Questions that are posed during the meeting will be addressed at the end of the session. In early October, Premier Horgan announced that boards would be responsible for making the decision on implementing a proof of vaccination mandate for those in their employ. The first step of this process for boards was to take steps to determine if a proof of vaccination mandate was necessary. To this end, the board consulted with Dr. Charmaine Enns, District Health Officer. In an hour-long meeting, trustees listened carefully to the information on vaccine rates in this community and transmission rates in our schools and posed wide-ranging questions on a variety of aspects on the necessity of a mandate. Dr. Enns answered all questions clearly and unambiguously. Over the past 20 months, there have been several exposures to the virus in School District 72 schools, but there have been no known incidents of transmission. This combined with the high rates of vaccination in the North Island, which we were informed at the time that 88% of eligible people have been partially vaccinated and 83% are fully vaccinated at the time, with rates increasing daily, and high rates of vaccination among teachers. BCTF reports a 94% rate province-wide. We don't have rates, we rate for QB. Adherence to public health measures in schools, and Dr. Enns' recommendation that a mandate was not necessary at this time, the board made the unanimous decision not to impose a proof of vaccination mandate at this time. However, should circumstances change, the board may decide to revisit this decision. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board for its thoughtful and reasoned consideration of the facts in making this very difficult decision. Dr. Enns pointed out that the most effective way to stop the spread of the virus is to be vaccinated. I would encourage all eligible School District 72 employees who are not yet vaccinated to do so in order to protect both their students and themselves from this insidious disease. The issue of vaccination for children was not part of the Premier's announcement, nor has the board ever considered it. Since the beginning of October, I, along with other trustees, have received letters couched in pseudo-legal terms from those opposed to vaccinations that threaten us with legal action and personal liability for any decision to approve a proof of vaccination mandate. Further letters have been received requesting special exemptions from any possible mandate for medical reasons that Dr. Enns assures us do not exist. Speaking for myself, these letters and requests were not a factor in my decision to vote not to impose a proof of vaccination. Dr. Enns' scientific information was the sole determinant on my part. On another matter, the Cder Replacement Committee, along with Superintendent Morrow and Secretary Treasurer Patrick, will take part in a Zoom meeting with Education Minister Whiteside on November 25th to advocate for the replacement of Cder Elementary. Thanks to all who've sent letters of support for this initiative, and if you believe that Cder Elementary is long overdue for replacement, please add your support by writing to Minister Whiteside. The information to contact the minister is on the district website. Finally, I recognize that these are trying times for everyone, but especially for our staff who are trying so hard to maintain a sense of normalcy in our system. Thanks to all of you for your efforts. Please know that your efforts are truly appreciated. Thank you. We will then move into the appointment of signing officers. And I think I have a suggested motion. I have to locate it. Okay, the suggested motion is that the Board of Education for School District 72, Campbell River, hereby appoints the Secretary Treasurer, Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Board Chairperson, and Vice Chairperson as signing officers for the school district. Do we have a mover for that motion? Trustee Franklin, seconded by Trustee McMahon. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. And Trustee Briggs, is there any way I can find a?
Can you see me? I'm not sure.
Oh, last guy next time. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move to the superintendent's remarks. Dr. Morrow.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson Kerr, and I'd like to start by offering my congratulations to you, Chairperson Kerr, and you, Vice Chairperson Eddie. Congratulations on your appointments. Tonight I'm just going to share a few things, and then I'm going to share a personal story connected to some of the observations that I've been able to make in some of our schools recently. I want to share that the Battle of Books began on November 1st. This is where our teacher librarians select 5 or 6 high-quality, engaging books for students to read at all grade levels. Students who choose to participate strive to read all of the books, and then they break into teams of 2 or 3 students and participate in 3 levels of the battle at schools, zones, and districts. And the purpose is to promote the enjoyment and the reading of material to encourage more students reading for pleasure. I wanted to report briefly on our November 1st Professional Development Day. It was a day set aside for every employee in the district to further their understandings and learning around Indigenous people's perspectives and worldviews. And I just wanted to report that it was a powerful day, and we heard from a number of staff who deepened their commitment to move forward in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Not only did we have keynotes that everybody was able to participate in the morning, but there was also different individual sessions in the afternoon, and I was fortunate enough to participate in an afternoon conversation with Hereditary Chief Bill Wilson. And those are just some of the examples of the activities that were available for staff on November the 1st. I wanted to share as well, just as a more of a normalcy and an excitement around some of the extracurricular activities that are happening in schools, and I was fortunate enough to be able to watch some senior girls volleyball on the weekend. Yes, I watched Timberline play Carey High, and I had a vested interest because my daughter is on one of those teams, but just to see there were 7 teams in the North Island tournament, and just having a gym full of people with whistles and cheers, and you know, adults with coffee able to watch their children compete, just a wonderful moment. And it's one of those things that we used to just do without stopping and appreciating how important and how grateful I was everybody was to be there. And I think it's worth noting a special congratulations. Over the last few months we've had a number of soccer and volleyball teams competing, and our senior boys soccer team from Carey High won the North Islands, won the Islands, and will be off to provincial, so we wish them the best of luck. And I do want to point out, and I think this is what I was there as a parent watching my daughter compete, but there was coaches there who had given up their Saturday to provide that opportunity for students to compete, and just grateful for the amount of care and the amount of contribution that our adults are willing to make for those opportunities that students find such joy and such value in. And to be there, seeing it from both the eyes of a superintendent and seeing 7 different staff members all coaching those teams, but also as a parent, it is a privilege. And again, not taking for granted those moments that occur within our system. Next week, student-led conferences will be taking place. It's a great opportunity for parents to connect with their child's teacher and give an update on progress. And lastly, I just want to talk about just some reflection. I've been able to visit quite a number of schools over the last week or 2. And I was just reflecting, it reminded me of a story that is a personal story, which is my wife and I were gifted a bottle of champagne on our honeymoon. And somehow that bottle of champagne remain unopened. Even though we bought a home and we had children, somehow we missed using this bottle of champagne to celebrate. And so it became symbolic of an event we were waiting for. And we had a day where my lovely partner was taking my son to preschool, and they were walking along a busy road, and he just pulled, and his hand slipped out of my partner's hand, and he went onto a very busy road. And the car that was in the lane missed him by the narrowest of margins. In fact, it was so close that the driver actually pulled over and came out sobbing, thinking that that my son had been hit. And it was just a regular day, and we celebrated that regular day with that bottle of champagne. And I think the purpose of sharing that personal story is that vignette around there are ordinary moments that are happening every day in our schools that are extraordinary and worth noting. Just like that gym full of kids was once something we might take for granted, to stop and realize with gratitude those opportunities. And so I'm going to share just 2 moments from 2 school visits. And one of them occurred when I was visiting a middle school, and I pulled in just after our diverse needs bus had pulled in. And so as I got out of my vehicle, I noticed an EA standing at the bottom of the steps welcoming students off the bus. There was 2 other educational assistants holding the main doors of the middle school open. And I walked in with those students, and I felt like a rock star because I was received like one of those students. And it was such a warm welcome and such a warm reception. And they do that every day. But that's a moment that is an extraordinary moment. I went to the office to check in with the principal, and I was told that I couldn't interrupt him because he was busy doing a check-in assembly with the whole school. And so, again, a neat moment because pre-COVID, there's no way a principal would be doing a Monday morning checkup with 650 middle school students. It would cause much more energy than it would solve in the check-in. And so I went across the office into a classroom and sat at the back of the classroom with grade 8s who are watching the screen and were engaged in the principal's conversation. And the principal was talking about what it means to be a responsible middle school student. What does behavior look like in the school? And the kids were engaged and appreciative of it. And then there was a moment where the vice principal came on, and it was such a positive piece. And I just happened to be there at that time. It's something that they were doing and have done throughout the school year. But to see something happening that couldn't and didn't happen pre-COVID as an example of just another great moment and just how positive the kids were and how receptive they were to that message. And then I had the opportunity on Wednesday last week, the day before Remembrance Day, where all schools participated in a Remembrance Day ceremony. I went and had a school visit at Sayward. And I was able to participate in the Remembrance Day ceremony that was held there in Sayward. And the principal set up that gym like there was going to be 1,000 people. There was big speakers, and there was multimedia and a screen. And the kids came and participated in this assembly. But what I appreciated was the principal had solicited from the school community connections within the school to either veterans or people of service that have been in service. And so the principal was able to put up slides of family pictures of great-great-grandparents and great-grandparents and make those personal connections, and the pride those kids had to see pictures of their relatives and the contributions they made to our country. And again, just to be there in that moment, to be part of a school that's small enough that they can all assemble together, but a reminder that 1,000 people or 35 people, those kids got the best in that moment. And those teachers that were there, they sang a song in community that they practiced. And again, it's not an extraordinary moment because it happens, but it's extraordinary when we stop and reflect on all the moving pieces that take place to create those experiences. And then lastly, and I know that there will be a probably more formal introduction of Suzanne Haribko. I'm really excited tonight to be able to welcome virtually Suzanne Haribko, who's an amazing asset and educator in our district, who by a pedagogy of necessity actually is a leader in some of the opportunities around what school can look like for students, and so I'm excited to welcome what I think as a district is a shining example of possibility and what could happen around transformative education. And it's from one of our small schools, but with a big heart. And so I'm looking forward to that presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Sounds like you've had some wonderful experiences over the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on into the approval of the minutes for the meeting of October 26, 2021. The suggested motion is that the minutes of the meeting of October 26, 2021 are hereby approved as circulated. Moved by Trustee Franklin, second by Trustee Wilson. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, the motion is passed. Okay, we'll move on into item number 7. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Hearing none, are there any additions or alterations to the agenda? Okay, and then we will move to the approval of the agenda, and the suggested motion is that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated. Moved by, Trustee Eddy, seconded by Trustee McMahon. All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion is passed, is carried. Okay, so we will move to Trustee Eddy, Vice Chair Eddy, report of the board decisions from the November 8th confidential board meeting.
The November 8th special confidential board meeting was a meeting with one agenda item, which was the discussion and presentation by Dr. Charmaine Enns regarding the vaccination mandate. Trustees were able to come to a unanimous decision, which was released to our employee groups, followed by the media the following day. It was embargoed until the following morning. And the report of the board decisions from November 16th are that they were discussing matters of staffing and legal. We did have an opportunity to complete our agenda this evening and will not need to go back to complete anymore tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thanks.
Okay, we move now to educational submissions, and this will be from Surge Narrow School. And I have the name Suzanne Ribko here, but it looks like we have Merle Vining here. So I'm not quite clear. You're doing the presentation? Oh, I'm sorry.
Introducing.
Okay, great.
I am here.
Great.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, Suzanne, I'm going to introduce you and your wonderful people. Okay. All right, so I'm Laurel Vining. I'm the proud principal of Quadra School and Surge Narrow School. And it has been such a pleasure over the last couple of months to travel to Surge in a Zodiac or boat and take a crew of people to go and visit this incredible community where there is Suzanne, who is in charge at the school, and she has a beautiful community of between 3 and 17 children, depending on the weather, and who can get there by boat that day. So Suzanne takes care of a multitude of things at the school, and it's been really a pleasure to get to meet Suzanne and all the kids and the families. And I was so fortunate to be there on the day when they actually launched the trail. And so I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne. And I do have a brochure that the children made, which I'm sure they will refer to, but I'll pass it around so you can have a look. So without any further ado, Suzanne Ribko and the Surge Narrow School.
And Suzanne, before you start, I'll remind you, and you probably already know this, but the public presentations are 10 minutes, so when you're getting towards the 10-minute or minute or so on the time limit, I'll give you a signal. Okay, but please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. And hopefully the audio will work for this. At Surge, the Wi-Fi is very, very slow, so I'm seeing a little bit of a delay, and hopefully this will go through well. Thank you for having me as part of this meeting. A lot of people in town don't know much about Surge and have a hard time figuring out how it works with it being one classroom of all ages together. This year I've got kindergarten through grade 9. And so being able to show the video that we made about making a community trail and brochure and fundraising and everything together, I think will give people some ideas about how we work together at all ages. And then I'll have a few comments at the end. I figured if we could start with the video and then I will comment after that.
Welcome to Reed Islands. We first want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox Nation, along with their relatives, the Kahoos, Hamilton, and Sriyaman, as well as the Lakota.
This is the head of Lot 302 Trail. It has been a 3-year project for our whole community. This land used to belong to a family in our community. They decided to sell it, and a logging company was interested. So the community had to raise money quickly. Our children helped to raise money by creating and selling tea towels. We went to Lot 302 and sketched drawings to print on. Then it was time to clear the trail. The school children helped the community by flagging and clearing the trail. Even the outdoor education class from Campbell helped. We decided to make brochures. Lots of different jobs. First, we picked the most interesting spots on the trail. Then we flagged them. Each spot had to be different so we could show people all the diversity in one little forest area. We then had to research these special spots and write a short paragraph about each one of them. It was great. It just needed to be edited. The older students got together and read writing over and over until each flag spot had a 75-word paragraph to describe it. Every brochure has pictures. We wanted to be original, so we decided to make paper collage art. The art was scanned into brochures to match the paragraphs. Lexicon markers had to be made along with the welcome sign. We went to a workshop and carved numbers on some cedar posts. Once everything was ready, it was time to open the trail.
Wow, look at that.
There were homemade goodies and lots of hot drinks. Quite the celebration.
But the kids, you guys spent more time than anybody in here really looking at things carefully and figuring out what we need to watch when we come through here. And wonderful work, signs, and work, and the calls, and the sure that's absolutely amazing. And we are so grateful that you've made this trail an extra special place for all of us and for everybody who comes to enjoy it. So thank you, Search Kids. Thank you, Dan, and Johanna. Thank you so much. You've been the driving force.
We are so proud of what we have done. Thank you for watching our video.
Cash and everything.
Thank you. What we did with all of this learning comes within the ADST category. So I know in town they're called expos, and each part of expo is taught separately. When you go to the ministry website, it's ADST, Applied Design Skills and Technologies. And we did that together for 3 years, understanding what was going to happen with the community wanting to buy this land, understanding the students' part in making T-TEL so they could be part of the fundraising, and then making the trail, and then making the brochure. Each one of those falls within the ADST category of going through the steps of making a product. And so everyone was able to work on this together in all the different ways. Some of the things that the students didn't talk about during the video of the technical work, how much time we spent measuring the distances, measuring the trees, using clinometers to figure out angles and heights of trees, as well as diameters and circumference to talk about in the brochure, researching First Nation languages of our area to figure out which words to add in the Likla language. The amount of research was absolutely incredible for them to decide on the different spots to make sure that each one was something different from the others. And the main thing is that this was a community project. This was not something designed for school kids. It was not something designed to fit specific curriculum. This was happening in the community, and it was just an amazing opportunity for the students to be able to enjoy working with the adults on something they felt very, very proud of. And that's the process I wanted to talk about. Just sometimes there's things that are out there that it just makes sense to be part of, as opposed to doing a separate assignment or a separate type of learning just for students. And I hope that gives people who haven't been to Surge a little bit of an idea of how you can have a group of students of all variety of ages being able to work together on the same project, and each one of them meeting the needs for their grade levels for their learning within doing the same thing. So thank you for that. And if there's any questions or comments, a few people were able to see the trail when it was open. And otherwise, we look forward to any visitors coming out. The kids love to take people on the trail, and hopefully there'll be more people able to do that in months to come.
Are there any questions for Ms. Rico? Trustee Franklin?
Well, it's been a while since the board's made a visit to Surge. It might be time for us to come and take a walk on that trail.
We would definitely like that, yes. And it's funny, if even though it's a project that is done per se, with the amount of rain that has happened over the last couple of weeks, we've realized that one part of the trail is getting a little bit flooded and swamped. So immediately the kids are thinking, how can we then improve it? How can we make it better? So they still have not left the editing, testing stage of it. They're constantly going to be working to make this a trail that will get better and better as time goes on.
Okay.
What a great way to allow the students to demonstrate good citizenship and citizenry and ownership of the natural resources of the community. It's a beautiful project, and I'm sure that those kids will always maintain that trail throughout adulthood because they have that special connection to that space. And great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Well, I'd just like to say every time I visited Surge, I've been just so impressed with what you're doing with the kids, Suzanne, and this is a wonderful way to share that with everybody. I've heard about the trail, but to actually see it and see what the kids have achieved is really inspirational, and once again, you're amazing.
Thank you, and at the same time, this is really from them and the community, and my role is just to help facilitate, help to figure out how that fits in, and we pull up the pages for the Ministry of Education just so they can see how everything that they're doing fits in with the ADST curriculum and the core competencies, and they design and do it themselves. It's very much, they're very independent, and I just help facilitate it more than direct, and it's a way that works for us.
Well, thank you very much. It really goes to show what an inspired teacher, engaged students, and a supportive community can accomplish even, you know, I mean, you've got a very small school there, yet you've done something quite extraordinary. And to think it all happened in School District 72. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Impressive. Yeah. Okay. We will move to the second public submission. And this will be from the Campbell River Family Network, working together for student success. And Brenda Bagman. And you heard the conditions of it for the last one, so.
Yes, I've been told that about 5 times. We'll see how I do. I do want to apologize. My asthma has been acting up tonight, but I think I have it under control. And please let me know if you can't hear me. So, first of all, I would like to thank you for including our presentation in your meeting tonight. I'm Brenda Wagner, and I'm coordinator of the Campbell River Area Family Network. I have with me Allison Duché, who is the child care consultant with Pacific Care for our area, and she will help me with questions if there are any after the presentation. I just want to spend a moment talking about the network. The network defines the early years as beginning with conception and going up to age 8. We have a diverse membership that includes the school district, and we really appreciate having Phil Sismic and Deborah Martell be part of our work. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of other members, I'll just highlight, we have Island Health, the city, our Indigenous organizations, Sassaman Society, the Equita Family Life Society, and even Métis Nation BC. And this is all in addition to the early learning and care service providers in the community. But we even have the Division of Family Practice, whose members are the doctors in our community. So collaboration is at the heart of all of our work. And that involves sharing our knowledge, carrying out research on specific projects, identifying gaps in services, and advocating for solutions. It's all for the betterment of our young children, their families, and our community as a whole. We are here to focus attention on the direct relationship between children's preschool years and their educational achievement once they are at school. This graph shows how critical those preschool years are in terms of early brain development and the unique opportunity that this presents before children start school. And this ties directly to the success of the school district's strategic plan. This is a quote from Dr. Perry, but this critical importance is held through research and has been championed by many prominent experts in child development, such as Dr. Fraser Luster, Dr. Stuart Shanker, Dr. Stuart Brown as examples. So I'm just going to read this slide about why we are here. We want to convince you, in case you might need convincing, that School District 72 must continue to create ties to the work and planning of the local early years community in focusing attention and resources toward optimizing the lives of young children and their families. And this is very needed right now as we look at the results in our community from the Early Development Instrument as assessed by the kindergarten teachers for children in kindergarten partway through their year. The EDI, the latest scale, Wave 7, is showing that our children in kindergarten are vulnerable on at least one of the EDI scales at a higher average than the province, but more importantly, demonstrating that we are going in the wrong direction because we have a 7% increase in overall vulnerability from the previous wave. Dr. Morrow very recently expressed considerable concern over the EDI finding for language and cognitive development. And this, on average, is an increase of 9% from 9% to 16%, from wave 6 to wave 7, and considerably higher than the provincial average. But the other scale dimensions are also of concern for emotional development and social development as examples. And this map, which where orange is indicating an increase in vulnerability that's considered at a significant statistical level, is showing it's across all these areas. It's in all these neighborhoods. So we know also from the toddler development instrument that families really need to have neighborhood early years programming, and Strong Start is a good example. And of course, there's others in our community. Family Services Society provides Baby's Best Chance and Creating Healthy Families and Family Place. So this network of early years programming at the neighborhood level is very important to maintain. We just want to point out, we often focus on disadvantaged families, but we know that community support is needed by all families, and particularly families with young children. I do want to mention that the results we are finding are pre-COVID results. So for these families, when you add in the disruption, the anxiety, the stresses that COVID has brought, then that makes everything more challenging for the children starting kindergarten with COVID. So we are looking for more connection with the early years programming, and what we are asking in that regard is for the school district to create the position of an early years coordinator. This has been done in other school districts where there is somebody in a role similar to Phil's, but there's also an early years coordinator, and the closest examples to us are School District 71, the Comox Valley, and School District 84, West Vancouver Island, and that's been very successful. So we are hoping to increase collaboration with the school district, to become a more active partner in planning using a community-wide working group. And by that we mean including the city, the regional district, childcare and early learning providers and other relevant service providers and planners, to increase Strong Start's engagement in early years community, to ensure sharing of the EDI and TDI findings and trends with all kindergarten teachers, and to provide more opportunities for shared professional development. We are here because we're very aware of the transition to Ministry of Education in 2024, and we want to start now to build a strong foundation together for success. Thank you.
Excellent timing. As you can see on the screen, are there any questions? I'm sure that Trustee McMahon, you might have some that would illuminate the situation.
I don't know that I do. I confess, I was part of creating the presentation. So all of the questions we had, we asked each other in order that we could sort of streamline.
Trustee Eddie.
I'm quite aware of the EDI instrument, and just for maybe some of those trustees or some members that aren't as aware of the EDI instrument, can you kind of just tell us what the trend in Campbell River has been over the last 7 waves? Like, are we always been getting worse, or is there?
I will ask. Go ahead, Jess.
We were on a trend to kind of look more and more vulnerable, and then in wave 6 we improved, and in wave 7 we seem to have taken over all the improvements that we made through to wave 6 and are back in more vulnerable shape now, I would say. Wouldn't you say that was the trend, Allison?
Yeah, I was really not familiar before, say, wave 6. I know there was, we got to wave 7 results. It's kind of a little depressing.
There was quite a celebration around the improvement that we had made in wave 6. And, you know, Courtney and the rest of the island was kind of looking to us for what we had done differently to make that kind of positive change. And we sort of celebrated with the idea that the services that we had been planning because of our awareness of what the trends had been in previous EDIs and TDIs, that we must have been doing something right. And then you can imagine the disappointment when the wave 7 results came out and we went, oh, maybe it was just a fluke.
Other questions? Trustee Hagan?
You talked about projects, specific projects that you're working on, and I'm just wondering who decides what the projects are, what the criteria are, and who measures them for success, because if we're going up and down with our waves, how do we determine what success looks like if it seems like we're just kind of motoring along? At one time we're doing very poorly, and then we're being successful, then we're not going to be, and this is going to be part of what we become and what we do as school boards in the year, what year was it, 24? And it would be nice to be able to be really proactive and embrace the future of looking after children. We do know that, you know, young children in their formative years, they really, that's where a lot of the learning and how to learn and how do you get there, and a lot of skills are developed at that age group. So when we talk about projects, and that's why I brought it up, is how is it that we can determine together what some good projects are based on, not just saying, well, this is maybe what we should do, because it would be nice to be seeing continued successful growth in specific areas, even though it's not part of our mandate right now. It is our mandate because we care for kids, and we're going to be getting those kids. But I'm just wondering how it is that we can specifically work together so that we can get to where we want to be by 2024.
Well, I can start off and answer. I think with the transition to Ministry of Education, having childcare switch over to there is a real signal of recognizing that those early years are intricately tied to what's going to happen for those children once they start in school. And we would love to have projects, joint projects or suggested projects. Right now, our projects are decided by a council with, we have about 30 members, and Phil and Deborah Martel are at those meetings. And so we decide in the council what projects we want to undertake. And I'll just give one example. We are working on a training program for early childhood educators to increase awareness on Indigenous ways of learning and practices, and with the goal of that being brought into the early educators' practice. So we are working on that particular project. We have several others. I don't know, Joyce, if you want to.
Well, one of my favorite projects is one that we're hoping to create a bit of a public awareness around the need for families to be supported from conception on. We know that the health of a mother at the point at which she is pregnant is extremely important to what the health of that baby will be coming into the world. And so a lot of resources have been focused in previous times in that postnatal period when the baby's actually here, and can we get nutrition for that baby? But we know that moms who are growing babies who are under tremendous stress or have the effects of poverty or social trauma, or those babies will be affected by that. So we're trying to create a community-wide awareness around how to support those babies from conception through to, say, 3. We're looking at healthy babies and trying to just make people aware that the supports don't start when a child is in preschool or when a child starts kindergarten, but really starts at that moment of conception.
Is as these projects unfold, we will have capacity to take on some other projects, and I think it's so timely to see if we can work more closely with the school district to determine what those project should be. I'm pretty busy.
Other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say we've got an amazing early years community, service providers and others already established. And I think it was a great opportunity for the school district to, use us and, work with us towards, identifying where there's vulnerability still and not just working from school, when school starts, but, very, very much earlier in the child's life as a team coming together to try and address those vulnerabilities earlier and support families, and then it's more seamless projection into the school districts.
Trustee Eddie.
I'd just like to thank you ladies for the work that you do. I've sat at your tables, I've heard your messaging. I, as a parent, have actively engaged in the free programming that you provide in all corners of the city and support. The message is valued and important, and really the work in early years lays the groundwork for the success of the child when it comes to moving into learning. And I look forward to hearing more about the work that you're doing and understanding a bit better how the school district can work more positively alongside you.
Trustee Hagan.
I'm a really strong believer that education isn't up to just school district 72, that it's up to every parent, caregiver in our district to raise children to their best potential level, whatever that could be. It could be caring and compassionate, it could be educationally sound, fit learners, but it's everybody's job. And whatever we can do to voice that, to promote it, I believe this board has always done that in whatever way we can. It's just now, again, where's our mandate and where's the direction and who's in charge? Those are all big questions, but as far as I'm concerned, parents and caregivers are in charge. And if we can assist in any possible way, and whatever that looks like, and whatever the model is going to be by 2024, I think the school district needs to be part of that. That we need to be part of the solution in addressing young children and how we can promote that to be whatever we can do. I think we need to be there. So as we start to develop a model, I would really like to see you folks part of our plan, and we become part of your plan so that we can be successful in seeing that children, when they enter into the school system at a later age, that they're prepared, that they're ready to learn, and that they have the nutrition and the well-being that they need to become successful citizens. So I'm looking forward to working with you in the next years that come.
That's just wonderful, and it's exactly what we would like to envision as well. I mean, very young children, their world is their family, and a lot of our focus is on the families. So there's just a lot of opportunity and a lot of support needed to sort of go hand in hand, I think. But yes, that's wonderful. And there are a lot of questions about what's going to happen with Ministry of Education taking responsibility for childcare. We don't know what that really looks like or means, but we want to have a very strong foundation in this community to be able to make that advantageous.
These are all issues that we've all been wrestling with, and we're going to get there, but we have to get there together, and everyone who can help us to get there successfully, I think this board, these trustees are that's part of our mandate. It's part of our strategic plan is to get there together. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, and count us in.
If I recall, he was a famous American politician. His mantra used to be that it takes a community to raise a child. I don't think it was her original expression, but I think it's never more true than it is now.
Yes.
But I have a nuts and bolts question for you. You talked about wave 6 and wave 7. So what is the time span between each wave?
Yes, I did write that down.
Is there a consistent time span? Like you do it every year? Is it,
We
okay,
do a 3-year
3 years?
span,
Okay.
so
When's the next one due then?
Wave 7 was pre-COVID, so I think next year.
Okay.
yes, I'll just mention, wave 7 was 2016 to 2019. And I don't know, like it takes a while for the results to come out, so results come out like I think in 2020.
So the assessment will be done next year and the results will be out the following year.
Yeah, I think COVID really has interrupted everything, and I don't know if you know how it's impacted, because this is headed up by the Early Learning Partnership at University of British Columbia. They roll out the EDI.
The EDI is usually done in February, I believe.
What's that?
The EDIs are usually done in February by the kindergarten teachers, I
Yes,
believe, so the results are usually, in the fall.
Okay. Well, thank you. You do important work and thank you for taking the time to come present to us and answer our questions.
Thank you, and you're doing very important work as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have no elected and no agenda submissions, elected or board matters issues, and or educational issues that are on the agenda for this evening. So we will then move to business administration and we will look at Secretary Treasurer Patrick, if you could review the surplus policy update.
Yes, I've got a pretty big list of things coming up here, so we'll start with a lengthier one and we'll end with a lengthier one, and the one in the middle will be pretty quick. So the surplus policy. So the Ministry of Education has recently brought in a requirement for school districts to have a surplus policy. And they've identified certain things that they require the boards to have in that. The great news is our board has a surplus policy. Even better news is some of those requirements our board has been doing for decades. So, but some of the practice that we've been doing isn't necessarily in the written portion of the policy, and it needs to be. So I've included some data in here about what ministerial policy is, and but I would like to just sort of suggest that the best way to really proceed with this, because it's required to be in place for this next coming budget year, is quite shortly here. I'd like to call the Audit Committee to review some of the requirements and see how our board would like to work those into the policy. So there might be one or two things that still need to be decided. There's a number of things that will need to be just transferred into the policy. But it is a governance policy, so it's a board governance policy. And so, yeah, I would just like to see if the board is okay with us sort of convening and tasking this to the Audit Committee to basically write up some proposals and then take it through our policy process and get it back to the board. And governance policies typically require, they'll require passage by the board.
So you're saying that we have been doing this on a regular basis for decades, and what you want to have is just to be reflected back in actual written terms of what the practice has been over the last while. Is that what you're asking for?
Correct, yes, and there are some decisions to be made about some of the consultation around policy with surplus. And the goal ultimately, and again, I believe that our board has really kind of approached things this way, is transparency when it comes to reserves and transfers of reserves, and even as far as feedback into how those reserves get identified. There are some unique challenges that I don't think I even have the answer for right now, which is why I'd like to bring the audit committee together to discuss and make recommendations. On the audit committee, we've got 2 trustee representatives, and we will have probably just 2 finance staff involved in that to look at the different options.
Do you need a motion on this, or?
Not right now. We'll bring a sort of a draft policy forward in either the next meeting or 2, and with the goals of basically the next budget process, including parts of this.
Anyone else have any questions or trustee?
Just being cognizant of the potential of community representation shifting, we may want to, just to back up your comments, that we may be switching members on the audit and risk committee. Would it be better served to keep the current committee members as we get through this policy process so that we don't have to go through another learning curve?
I would appreciate that. I actually am hoping to bring the audit committee to look at this like before the next meeting starts, and it may take a meeting, it might take 2, but I'm hoping that we could probably accomplish what we need to within a meeting. And so there's a chance it may be completed, the draft at least completed, but the consistency would be important. And yeah, if it did filter over into the next committee appointments, then to have consistency would be good practice.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Hagan?
So you would see the audit committee coming forward with recommendations for the policy committee to embed it? Is that what we're looking at?
I think you could just bring it directly to the board.
We can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one question. When I was reading this, and I was frantically trying to find it as you were speaking, but one of the statements in there said that the board should keep a reasonable, they call it a surplus, I call it a reserve, but anyway, reasonable, but they didn't define what reasonable was, they didn't give a range or anything else like that. And we, like if they say reasonable, who defines that? Do we define that? I mean, we had one point, for example, when I was on the audit committee, the auditor recommended a 5% reserve. We were running at 2.5%, and I know that you had a discussion with the auditor about that during the presentation. It was a clarification thing. So, who determines what reasonable is?
So it is ultimately up to the board to determine the reasonableness of the surplus amount. But there's also the other important question is what is included in with that unrestricted surplus that they're talking about. We handle things probably slightly differently than they would like, but they have mentioned a 2 to 4% from the province. But if the board has a different amount, it could be less, it could be more than. It is the board's decision, and I guess if the ministry disagrees, maybe the ministry will follow up with a different guidance or recommendation, but it is up to the board.
Thank you. Okay. So we will then.
Okay. So these next series are finance staff.
I just was wondering, do we need to have separate motions on each one of these, the next 4?
So these are finance warrants. It's not a bylaw reading. So if the board would like to combine these, I think that is absolutely fine tonight. Our finance department has been very hard at work, as you can see, after kind of catching up on that, completing the hard work of the financial statements, and we've had a little bit of turnover in our finance department, but everybody's settled in, and Obviously, they're up to speed because boom, 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 here's all these finance warrants, and they're right up to date on these, so. But
So,
yes,
I would
So
like
we
to,
have four finance warrants, and so would you move that we would?
yes, I would like to move B, C, D, and E financial warrants,
Okay.
approval.
I'm going to combine these suggested motions here for you, okay?
Okay.
Is it the finance warrant number 2 dated July 31, number 1 dated July 31, 2021, finance warrant number 2 dated August 31, 2021, finance warrant number 3 dated September 30, 2021, and finance warrant number 4 dated October 31st, 2021 be accepted as presented. Is that motion okay with you?
Yes.
We have a seconder, Trustee Franklin. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is passed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we will then move into the
Yes, so
Part
one more item that our finance department has been hard at work is our quarterly report for the period ending September 30th. So it's included with your agenda packages. Unfortunately, I don't have it on a thumb drive to share it on the screen. So we'll have to just flip through it with the trustee packages. So the first page that we typically look at is the second page. We've kind of got a list of numbers on. We've got sort of the full year budget the full year estimated budget is in the first column on the left, and then we've got a budget year to date, which is we're through the first quarter, so it'll show what the first quarter budget should be for the first 3 months. It's got an actual, and then it's got some percentages and some other metrics to look at how well we're doing. The challenge with the first quarter is actually just what previous 3 months reflected, which is 2 months of summer, which means no teacher instruction costs, but we have a lot of work from the maintenance department, and a lot of repairs and maintenance, and some ordering from schools. But when you hit, there's 1 month of September that has instructional costs. And so you'll see that reflected in the expenses, but we can just kind of bring your attention to the budget year to date. First quarter revenue was expected to be 6.1 million, and we've got 7.1 million. The ministry does give us less through the summer as we go through the year, and then it does start to ramp up. So, and it is difficult for us to capture that within the budget year to date. So we just show the first 3 months, and it starts to catch up in December, and it's fully caught up in by the end of the year. Then on the expenses, this is where you can see some of the difficulty as well. Again, we've got 1 month of EAs and teachers, but we've got a lot of expenses, and our budgeted year to date quarter should be 8.4 million, and we're at 9.1. And again, that is due to the work that had occurred over the summer. Because then when we switch to the next page, which has the summary budget analysis, it's got instruction, district administration, operations, and staffing on there. You'll see, so under the instruction account, the column the item that's most over budget is the supplies, which all the supplies were pretty much ordered in summer, getting ready for the beginning of the year. But we've got a year's worth of supplies with part of a year's with only one quarter for the budget. So we're overspent according to the budget on the supplies for the instruction. When you look at district administration, we're actually pretty close. 725 budgeted to 793. Those expenses though are generally evenly distributed throughout the year. We are under budget in the operations and maintenance overall, but you'll see that the supply budget actually has us a little bit over. Again, some of that work is what occurs during the summer. And then the same thing when we get down to transportation and maintenance, the total budget is about 34% over, or the total spent is 34% over, but when our buses are there, we want them to be worked on and get them all ready for the school year. And so, yeah, again, looking at the very bottom, we're about 10% over, but I do expect that this catches up and some of the seasonality gets smoothed out by December. So the pages after that, won't go through those, but it's just more detail line by line. And if you've had a chance to look at them, if you do have some questions, you can ask, let me know if you have any questions.
Trustee Hagan.
Yeah, I know that with COVID, that we were looking at making some improvements to our filtering system and those kinds of things. Did those all occur through these budgets, or?
Yes, so those expenses are in place, and the board had approved a portion, an extra portion from the appropriations for some COVID costs. Plus, there was a holdback grant that we had identified last year, which was also in the appropriations, and then there was about 130,000, just under 130,000 that actually has been provided for COVID costs. So it covers more of the costs than we expected, because I didn't expect the $130,000 one. But so we're able to use that to supply some of the additional cleaning costs, filters, energy costs, and cleaning supplies, and definitely a lot of masks that we've had to continue with this year. But it hasn't provided us, of course, with the enough funding to do the extra staffing support that we did. So, so there's some substantial support for some of those cost items this year.
Okay, are there other?
I wanted to chase us down on the masks that we provide. I know we're meeting the standards that are set for us. What kind of masks are being provided in our district?
So I can probably bring Associate Superintendent Phil Sismic into this. He's been the mask master for our district for the last year now.
So every student and every staff member has been provided with reusable masks. But the bulk of our masks are disposable masks, especially at the elementary level with the elementary mask mandate. If you've ever been in elementary school after recess and lunch, the number of mittens, jackets, hats, scarves, shoes, everything. So you can just imagine masks as they take them off and they've got them in their pockets and they're running around doing stuff. So that's the bulk of our kind of mask consumption right now, is at the elementary level with the primary mandate.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, I've got Phil on the line. I know that hard surfaces transmission has been, I don't know, downgraded, if you want to call it that. I know at one time we rented special machines to clean our buses, or we bought some machines. Are we still utilizing all of those? Or?
We've got two types of machines. We've got the Clorox machine, which is kind of the heavy duty, and then we've got, they're called spray guns. You can put alcohol or a cleaner in there to make the cleaning faster, because it is time consuming to do hard surfaces and such. So especially with buses, I believe they're using the spray gun, not the heavy duty Clorox machine. But the alcohol will kill any lingering COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Patrick. There's a lot of work tonight.
Team's been busy.
Okay. The next item will be the Cder replacement. My report will be very brief. The Cder Replacement Committee, which consists of Trustee Franklin, Trustee McMahon, and me, along with Secretary Treasurer Patrick and Superintendent Morrow, will be taking part in a Zoom meeting with Minister Whiteside next Thursday at 1:30. Pardon me, a 20-minute Zoom meeting from 1:30 to 1:50. So we have 20 minutes to make our case. So again, as I keep saying, if you can possibly support this initiative in any way, because this will be our chance. And I expect that sometime after, sometime probably not too long after that, we will get the answer that either they will take it forward or they will tell us that that's not possible. So we want to make it as difficult for them to say no as possible, and we need everyone's help to do that. So if you could see your way to doing that, if you haven't already done so, we would really appreciate it. And if there's no other business, are there any questions arising?
No questions have come in so far. You want to give it a minute or two?
Let's give it a minute. It hasn't come in yet, it probably won't, but, okay, Trustee Hagan.
I just wanted to mention with all the flooding and the slides that are going on, that our thoughts are definitely with all of the families and children involved across the province. It's quite something. We are seeing such a rapid change in what seems to be climate change, and our thoughts are really going out to all of those families. And these are stressful times anyways, with COVID and with the unknown, and we want you to know that as a district, we're working all together to support every member of this district. If anyone needs to reach out and contact our offices, our administrators, that we're here for you. If you, as a trustee, we're here, and just contact us if you need support in any way possible.
Thank you. Have any questions for me?
No, there has not.
Okay, so we will move to the final item on the agenda. Trustee Hagan.
To move adjournment.
All those in favor? Aye. We are finished for the evening.
We are indeed.